Can everyone hear me loud and clear?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Yes.
All right.
All right. So we have met with Pierre. This is our third time, and we talked about his family and Cameroon the first time we met, and then the second time we talked about his educational journey, and talked about schools and his and just how difficult it was to adapt to America and the language and the culture. And then today we're going to talk about his spiritual journey, his journey with God, and where was God in all this? Because we know that persistence, there's only so much a person can do with all the obstacles he had. That obviously there was God with him, pushing him, and had a reason for all this. So we're going to get started, and then you can certainly jump in, and then there'll be some time for you to ask questions too. But I have a number of questions just to get us started, and Pierre already has the questions, so he's prepared. So here we go. And hi, Lisa and Brittany. I didn't see you pop in, but hello. So, all right. So, Pierre, when you were little, did your family practice a faith together? Did your parents have a Christian faith, or?
When I was growing up, my parents in particular, I would say no. Like my mom and then my stepmom, I call it stepmom just to differentiate, but like my dad's second wife and my dad, both of them, none of them went to church. But from like family discussions, like they used to go to church, but they stopped going to church when they start having kids for some reason. But
so they had a Christian background then?
Yeah, they had been going to church, but they stopped at some point.
Do you know what denomination church they were going to?
My mom and my dad, they used to go to Presbyterian. Okay. And then my dad's second wife used to go to used to be Catholic.
Okay.
Which are the two dominant Christian faiths in the village.
Okay. Are there other, and you said that there's other faiths though all over Cameroon.
Yeah, like we had like basically like based on my village, we had like we had Catholic, Presbyterian, we had Apostolic Church, the Seventh Adventist Church, and
okay.
A lot of other churches. Yeah.
But you also had people of the Islamic faith and Jewish faith too?
Jewish faith, not so much. But Islam, yes, we had the Islam faith. But like in my village, like the people, like the tribe that lives in my village that practice Islam, they live mostly on the like in the outskirts of the village. So yeah, there's Islam, but it wasn't really like a common faith that we practice in the family.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so when did you first meet God?
It took a long time for me to meet God. Like in my family, when I was growing up, like my parents, they went to church for some reason, they stopped, but they did not stop kids. For some reason, they will actually encourage us to go to church and stuff like that. So I had siblings that went to church. So as a kid, I would just follow some of my siblings to church. So I went to like Catholic, I went to Presbyterian. So I went to church pretty like regularly when I was growing up, but if you ask me like why I was going to church, I would not give you, I would say because it's Sunday when I was in the village. And one part of the reason was also because when most of my siblings went to church and I was left at home, it means more work for me. So no, but it took me long. Even my two younger brothers, they actually did doctrine and got baptized before me. So the first time I met God was like when I was in middle school. That was when I was away from home and living by myself away from home. And that gave me time to think and analyze stuff. And I'm like a very practical person. So what happened is, in my middle school, we had what we call moral instructions. So moral instruction is like every Wednesday at 7:30, we all moved like to pack into various classrooms, and they had various like pastors and like imams and others. They would come and like preach faith to us, whether it was like Islam or Christianity. They would just have them to just teach us things like that. Um, so there was this one pastor that I only know him by, like, he was a Presbyterian pastor. I remember him just by his first name, Peter. Um, so the way he like preached was he actually would read like Bible verses and actually relate that to the actual stuff that happened in society and describe like the things like the sufferings and the triumph we go through and that's okay, like, because for me when I was like struggling and going through trouble, I blame everything on God, and I even question whether God exists. Why do I have to go through this if God exists? Like, I don't think God would let someone go through these kind of situations. So he really like explain stuff like that, like give examples, relate his preaching to like the normal stuff that goes on in our lives. And I was pretty touched, and I followed his doctrine, and I got baptized on campus. I cannot prove it because I did not have 40 cents to take a picture to prove. um, but I followed, he did doctrine, and we were like three of us that he baptized us at the end of the semester in college. And I did not even have to ask my parents to get baptized. It was my decision. And when I told my parents, it was okay by them.
And so how old were you when you were baptized?
I think I would say I was around like 15, 16.
And what was that experience like for you?
Like I really like by that time I was really thinking it was like I really like really felt like God was really pushing me, and I could really like think back and just like look and say, I did this to get here. I couldn't have possibly did that by my power alone. I did this and it didn't work, but in the last minute, out of a sudden, this worked. That could like, how did that happen? So I started analyzing things like that and said, there might be like some kind of a force, like helping me and things like that. Didn't make sense, but that's the way I analyze and interpret it, and saying that like even though I'm working hard and doing all this, like there's like this force, like extra force, helping me to like achieve my dreams. And because I could not think it was by my hard work or all those things alone, because I had people that were working as hard as I was, and they were not achieving what I was achieving. So
that is so cool. I actually had chills as you were saying all that. I'm sure other people did too. You're right. You had other people that were highly motivated and very smart that were going to school, but God chose you for a reason. Yeah, that's really cool. So you talked a little bit about being involved in the Presbyterian Church, and I think that you'll remember, a lot of you, in his book, that one of the stories that Pierre shared was that when the offering in our church, the offering is passed around, and you can put something in or not, and there's no shame if you don't put anything in or whatever. But when Pierre went to church, they danced down the aisle to give the offering, but you didn't have a choice about doing that. So you said that you couldn't go to church unless you had something to put in the offering. But then when you had it, you joyfully danced down the aisle to give it. And I'm trying to think of our church, if we ever would dance down the aisle. I think we might dance in our hearts, but not outwardly when we ever dance down the aisle. And
I'm in for dancing down the aisle.
Yeah, you would, Jen, but I think that's just.
And I'll be your partner.
Yeah, I'm down for that.
It's such a beautiful image to think of people just giving so much and with so much joy that that they're dancing, and I just, that image to me just makes me smile.
Yeah,
But there's
and
also, oh, go
and
ahead.
most of us, like a lot of people, like a lot of kids, especially in the village, and even my brothers, like you go to the city, my brothers, some of them, they don't go to church, but they send all their kids, they go to church every Sunday. And most of them, they go to church because of the singing in
Yeah,
church on Sundays,
yeah.
the singing and
That's,
the dancing.
so tell us a little bit more about the Presbyterian Church and what it looks like in Cameroon, because you've been involved in the church in Canton and in the church here in Liverpool. So you have a little bit of a taste of what Presbyterian Church is in the United States, although every church is a little different. But how would you compare the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon?
All right, so in Cameroon, like the Presbyterian church, the first thing, the Presbyterian church, like most other churches in Cameroon, you go to church on Sunday. It's mostly youth, like mostly younger people, which is the reverse here, like mostly like older, you go to church here, it's like mostly older people. So comparing that to here, it would mean like when I came to Canton and went to church for the first time, I thought because Canton was, the church was between St. Lawrence University and Stony Canton, there would be so many students in church. Then I went to church and I was the only student. So that was like a big surprise. Unlike back home, you go to church, it's mostly a lot of students. One thing too is like in church, besides the singing, I already said we know about the singing part. One thing too is like here, I actually prefer the church here in the aspect that people in church, they care about like each other, how the other people are doing. They want to like know people in church personally. But like most churches in Cameroon, you have like the deacons, the pastor, like the top people in church. But mostly they don't really like follow up on the other people that come to church and like to show them that we care. Or like I was going to, like for instance, I went to church very regularly in Cameroon. But if you go to most of the churches and you ask who is Pierre, nobody will know who Pierre is because they didn't care about like how regular I was coming. They didn't pay attention. Um, and I was never a deacon at the church in Cameroon because nobody asked me if I wanted to be a deacon. But here, I came here in Liverpool, and just shortly after, like 2 weeks after I became a member, I was asked if I wanted to be a deacon. So there's like those differences. So sometimes like giving, like making people to really make you feel like you're part of the church, it will actually like, it makes like a big difference. So that's something like the people in Cameroon, they can use here.
So a little culture shock when you became a deacon and you're shuttling meals to all these people. We've been busy. The deacons have been really busy the last couple months. Yeah.
Which is pretty cool. Like that's something I wish like they can do back there because they have like they don't have money there, but they have food. They have abundant food that they can give away so they can do stuff. But
Well, I'm gonna let I have lots more questions here, but we're gonna just let other people ask questions and kind of focus on the church.
yeah.
So go ahead. If somebody has a question for Pierre about the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon or what we've talked about so far.
So Pierre, one of the big things that struck me was when you're talking about the mourning after your father's death.
Yeah.
And everything. I was wondering, how do the faiths get involved in that part of life transition?
Like with my dad passing, because he was like, my dad wasn't really active in church by the time he passed away. So church was not like the people that he used to go to church in the past, like they just came to like pay their respect and stuff. And he usually just go to church if someone was like having a kid being baptized, he was invited. he will go and things like that. So there wasn't really like a big like church service thing. Like his death, like as an elderly person in the village, was dominated by like traditional ceremony, like a lot of traditional dances, a lot of traditional rituals, some of which I don't really understand and I cannot explain. And like the chief in the palace would send a group of people to come and perform things. And sometimes they would say stuff and speak in tongues that I don't know which kind of language they're talking about and things like that. But the thing to like with faith with my parents is like when you grow up in like in a society where you look at yourself like you're at the bottom of the bottom. You see other people thriving, you're at the bottom. You really like you think like sometimes I used to think that maybe if God exists, he was busy. Like I used to struggle and I would say maybe if God exists, he's somewhere busy, like helping other people where I'm left here to struggle. So it's almost like my parents were like that, like their lives wasn't any better than anyone. They didn't feel like they had the presence of God in their life. So it was just like that. But now, like I have my mom, like, because like me, like I feel like only me like coming here to the US actually changed even the faith in my family. Like my mom actually goes to church right now. Like he goes to church because she's saying that like it's like the story of my family changed. Like just by me like moving here, she started seeing like all the changes and everything, and she goes to church now. So I feel like them not going to church, it was just like they had all this question and didn't really feel like God was doing anything for them. And yeah.
That is so beautiful.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Other questions for Pierre?
So if my mom dies, which I hope it doesn't happen, because when an elderly person dies in Cameroon, it's too much money to spend. So I hope she lives for as long as possible. But if she does, whenever that happens, there's gonna be like a big church, like a church burial and all those things. Yeah.
Lots of celebration of her
Have
life.
a lot of singing and dancing.
I'm curious about when you said that the churches in Cameroon are mostly youth. What's drawing the kids into the church?
Good question.
Yeah, that's a good question. I wish I had a good answer for you, but because like there's really no excuse for people, like no big excuse for people not going to church, because first of all, in Cameroon, people like Sunday, people don't work on Sunday, so there's free time. So people don't really have a big excuse besides just sleeping in and doing other businesses. I cannot really defend them for not going to church. That's what I'm saying.
But you see that the churches in the United States that that they're all struggling, that we don't have, that we're losing people, and we're not keeping our young people. They're not returning to the church when they come home from school, and they're not returning, and the churches are slowly
Losing them.
Yeah.
So, and I cannot really, and the youth like going to church, like in Cameroon, like I was blaming like the church, they don't really reach out to everyone that comes to church. Also, I'm gonna cut them some slack because the church is always full. So the church is always full like with people. So it's hard to reach out to everyone that comes to church. So there were times that depending on where you are, you have to try to go to church early so you can have a seat.
Wow. Yeah. Would that be so here? Yeah, I just think that we have to remember what the purpose of church is. And obviously these kids want to be together, they want to worship, and they're getting fed in some way. They're feeling their souls are being nourished, and they keep coming back. So
Pierre, why you said that it's mostly young people, is that because in church, is that because they get there first before and there's no room for folks who are older? Or why do older people stop coming to church?
So I would say, like most older people, the only reason, because first of all, in church, like there's like a thing in Cameroon that is not like it's not like a written rule, but if an older person comes to church, like a younger person would not sit and let an older person stand. So that's not an excuse, because if you're an older person, you come to church, even if you're late, a younger person will stand up and give you the seat. So I would say like it's mostly because, first of all, most people in Cameroon are like self-employed. Most people are self-employed, so they always have a lot of things doing. Like they always have a lot of personal business going on. So they let business take over that. I would say it's just like what they have to do, not because of the sitting.
Do people come with children, with little children? Do parents come with their little kids?
Yep, but people come with their little kids, but what is very common is usually like you see an older sister or an older brother with the younger siblings. That's usually the situation. And you go like when you go to like when I go to Cameroon, like go to Douala where I have most of my brothers, on Sunday you will see like the older sibling will like take the younger sisters and the sisters and brother, and they will join and they will go to church, and then the parents they just sit at home cooking and just
So
chatting.
the parents value the church experience, but they pass it on to their oldest children to take the younger children. But
Yep.
they value it because they want the kids to go.
Yeah. And really, they don't. What surprises me, they don't really force anyone. Like they don't force anyone to go to church. In my family, like it's totally optional. Like they can recommend and like ask you, like your sister went to church. Why didn't you go to church? But they will not punish you for not going.
You said your mother is going to church now. Does your stepmother go as well?
Yeah, she does go to church. The only person, but there's one person in my family, like my aunt, like she's been going to church as long as I know her, and she's the one that pushes people to go to church, question people if they don't go, why they don't go to church.
We all avoid her, yeah.
Yeah.
And what about your siblings now? Are they still involved with their faith?
Yes, like my siblings, they're pretty much involved with their faith. The only ones that I know they don't go to church regularly might be like some of my older siblings, but most of them they do go.
That's just.
So at the churches, is there something beyond the worship service part? Like, is there a Christian education program in the church?
Oh yeah, they do. They do have Christian programs. They have, like here, what we say, like we say the young disciples or something like we have here. Yeah. We actually have church in Cameroon in like 2 sections. They actually have like the younger disciples church section, which is actually like a church on its own, where they go and they have their own private service, and besides like the older people. And and before you even get baptized, they have like a big Christian program where they educate. They have like a long program where they teach you everything. And you have to, they actually do it, and you have to take a test at the end. And it tells like you have to name the 10 commandments and recite the.
Hey, that sounds great. I think we should start doing that. I like that. I'm going to test everybody. I think it's a good idea here.
Maybe that new spiritual formation coordinator get that going.
So, Pierre, you mentioned baptism and a program before people get baptized. Does baptism happen usually for older children, or do they baptize babies like sometimes we will do?
So they are like some families that they are pretty involved in church, like the parents are pretty involved in church and they go to church regularly. So those parents that go to church regularly, they baptize their kids when they are still young. For families where the parents don't go to church regularly, where it's optional for their kids to go to church, the kids, they get baptized down the road. So it varies.
When you were baptized, were you just sprinkled with the water, or did you have a
I was, yeah, it was sprinkle. They sprinkle water, and it was actually in a classroom. Not even in. It was in a classroom because I was baptized on campus.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Pierre. I was curious about the length of the service on Sunday.
Oh, it's longer than here. So church service in Cameroon is like usually like the churches I usually go to are like 2 hours, like 2 hours church service. But I think that's why like the singing is really important because they do a lot of singing, so that keeps people awake. But I also actually know some churches in Cameroon that they go as long as like 3 hours.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
That's long.
That's long. But the churches I went to, they were usually like 2 hours.
It's no wonder adults stop going after a while. I mean, you know, at a certain age, you've got all the church you can get if you're going for 3 hours in a week. So
yeah. I think we are finding those reasons together.
It's probably the only rest they get from their kids too, is when they send them off to church and they can be home alone for a little bit.
Yeah, not really, because for African parents, they can push the kids away whenever they don't want them.
That's true.
You can be harsh on your kids.
And also, how's the availability of Bibles? Would you have to bring one from home, or are they available in the sanctuary?
I would say in some churches, they don't have enough Bibles. So usually we'll come from home with our own Bibles. And I would say sometimes most people don't even, like a lot of people, all they have is like the New Testament that they take to church. I think like I used the New Testament until I was like in high school when I got a Bible. And the Bible that I actually had was given to me by my aunt. So they don't really have enough Bibles, but sometimes we are lucky, like we have missionaries coming from the US, from Europe, that they come, sometimes they go to schools and they donate, like give Bibles to people, give away free Bibles.
And your church service is done in what language?
They actually do them in, depending on the place, like you go to places like, they will pick like a place where it's like English dominant and then dialect. It depends on the neighborhood where the neighborhood where the church is. When they read the Bible in English, if English is a primary official language, they will read it in English, and then someone would translate into the dialect.
Oh.
Yeah, and then the pastor preaching, if the pastor is not a local person, the pastor will preach either in English, and then someone would then translate the preaching into the dialect.
What language was your first Bible in?
It was in English. They usually, I wonder a lot when I was in Cameroon. So when I was usually in the English region, they would do it. And I would understand because I went to school, I understand the English. Most of the churches, I did not understand the dialect. Like when I was in middle school, I went to places with dialects other than mine. So I would understand the English and not the dialect.
Oh, okay.
But in my village, when I was in the village, I will understand both.
When you did hear things both in English and in dialect, did you sometimes hear things maybe meaning a little bit different between the English and the dialect?
Yes, especially like the dialect version, like they will summarize, like they will make like a very brief summary of like a big thing that you understood that was in English sometimes.
When you communicate with your family, do they ask you about your church in America? And why you are there? What are the benefits? Do they talk with you at all about it?
Yes, like especially like I said, my aunt, like like she's the one that she leaves me like prayers on WhatsApp all the time, and she asks me to pray. She asks me like the church I'm going to. She asks me about the people at the church and stuff. So I say stuff about all of you guys to my people back home. Yeah, they ask me about things like that, and my like I'm actually like, and then like my mom, then I will ask my mom like how about church. Like mostly I'm the one asking my mom, but the bigger person like that pester me about church is my aunt all the time. Uh, yeah.
So Pierre, as you look back at your journey getting your education, do you see, you kind of talked about this before, but how do you see God's part in this?
Um, I think especially now that like I've actually like learned the American way, like see stuff here. Like right now, I look back like it's more like flashing back to what happened. There's a lot of things that happen. Like if you read that book, you will see like I was always like on the edge, like all the time.
Yeah.
And I look back now and I have no clue about how things were happening. Like there were so many things that happened to my life, like me succeeding to the point of even having me here in America. Like it's impossible. And you even go to the village, like even when like I came here and you went to the people came to the village and said, "Oh, Pierre went is in America now." Everyone was like, "Nope, it's impossible." Like because and they say it's impossible because they use my family. Like, look at his mom is in the village, no nothing person, doesn't have a bank account. Dad is in the village, a simple like tailor, like sewing uniforms and just trying to make a few cash for his beer. Um, like I look back, like almost everything now like that has happened to me, and like not only me personally, but like how my family has transformed from like a nothing family to where my family is, and like it just has to be like a force, like something um like like it's I cannot even describe it. Like if you had to like know what my family was and like really see where my family was, like everyone struggling to meet like ends meet and everyone just suffering. And I mean, I was always asking like why me with stuff, and like I used to just ask me like why me, like when I was struggling through stuff. And like right now I just look back and I was just like I'm just like, what have I done to deserve all these blessings that I have like now? So like God is doing something. Like someone told me that, like I used to ask someone like, why do I have to be the one doing this? It's like, okay, you need luck and all these things, but I needed luck. And then there's like that force, like there was that force behind that was pushing me and guiding me through. Um, and like I used to like tell my family that like I would say, like when I talk to my mom, my aunt, like that's the person I talk about, like like God and everything with. I would tell her like the only way I can summarize my life is like I feel like God actually had a plan for me, like, and every struggle and everything I went through was on purpose, because everywhere I went, every struggle I went through, to the point where I was at the breaking point, there would be someone that was like an angel that gave me that push, and I went through, and that was it. Um, so
Yeah, God showed up in so many people in your life,
yeah,
you know, and sometimes we think when we're praying that we're waiting for something to happen, and if something happens and we don't always recognize it, but it's from another person that's
yeah,
God working through. And you seem to have had person after person after person show up in your life to guide you and to help you just when you needed it the most. And on top of that, you had your own, you know, just your own innate desire to succeed. Did you
yeah.
ever think you wouldn't succeed? Did it ever cross your mind that you were not going to get this education?
Yes, a lot of times. Like, there were so many times that I felt like, okay, even though I like school, my problem in school was never to move on to the next class or to pass an exam. My problem was always like how to get there, like the money on
Right.
how, like, to pay for school fees, that, or to buy a textbook. That was my problem. And at every stage, I had that problem all the way through. And I must admit, like, even when I knew that I found God when I was in middle school, I still spent like most portion of my life when I was struggling. Like, there were times I know, like, okay, I know, like, I believe there's a God and everything I know. And I'm grateful, but to be honest, I still question God a lot. Like I still ask a lot of questions whether God existed or things like that. Um, especially like the times I went through, like in high school, there were times that I would just sit, like just sit in a room, like going through, like, like the point where you really hit like a stump, like a block, like there's no way, like you feel like there's no way out. And I would really question God and question whether God exists, and like ask why me and question like that. Um, and that also happened when I came here. It's like, I'm like, why always me? Um, because I did all of this in Cameroon, and praise God and thank God for everything. And I felt like extremely like the blessed person in the world when I was leaving Cameroon to come to the US. But when I arrived here, things were not the same. And there were times I actually sat in my dorm room and really cried. Like just imagine, like, I still question even that time, like, like you can believe there's God, but like, which is what made me to understand, like, maybe sometimes my parents or some people, they don't go to church or really believe in God. Maybe it's just because of the circumstances they are going through, and they just give up and just blame things. Because I almost did that, because like in church in Canton, I sat in the room, I cried, why me? Why me? Because why always me? And I'm looking at kids succeeding, looking at kids coming to school, like their parents dropping them off. And they said, no, I'm not going to attend this school because they don't have nice buildings, this college. And that's the reason they are not attending that school. I'm there, I want to attend the school, but I'm not attending because I cannot afford it. And then I look back, I'm like, okay, my parents back home, my parents, none of them can have like a bank account with like $1,000 in it. And here I'm stuck in America with a tuition of $10,000. Like a tuition of $10,000. Where's that money going to come from? I don't know anybody in this country. Whom am I going to talk to? And I questioned God and all those things. It made me question everyone and question my parents, like, why was I born into this family? Which is something I asked my dad, like, why, like, I said, why was I born into that family and all those stuff? I had all those crazy stuff going through my mind. But look, at the end of this story, it was the church that saved me, to put me in touch with the right people that helped me to get through college.
It's such a beautiful story.
Yeah, and I look back now and I help other people. The reason I help other people, try to make people not to go through the same kind of problems I went through and all those things, because I had that experience.
So this is a great segue into talking about your mission. So when you were up in Canton, you started a nonprofit mission. So tell us a little bit about that, how you started that, and how it works, and so forth.
All right. So, so when I was in Canton, I actually had a job, an on-campus job, and I was surprised the first time I got a paycheck, and they paid me $7.25 an hour, and I translated that, and it was like 4,000 francs in Cameroonian money. And my school fees in Cameroon was 2,500 in the village. And my parents, it took them a year to pay in installment, and I had to be sent out of the classroom. So when I had my paycheck, I'm like, so if I could sacrifice 1 hour in America, I can actually pay a kid's school fee, a yearly school fees in Cameroon.
Unbelievable.
Which is why I came up with the idea and said, okay, like at some point I want to come up with a system where I'm going to like maybe try to help at least one kid in Cameroon to go to school. And I brought up that idea with my host mom, Ellen.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, that's a good idea. I didn't even know anything about like nonprofit organizations and things like that. I was just telling her like, I can actually sacrifice like one of my paychecks and sponsor like 5 kids in Cameroon per year in a primary school. And then she then told me like, yeah, there's like a thing like a nonprofit organization that you can do. So I did a research, and when I had my bachelor's degree, I created a nonprofit organization, and I knew people at the time, so people contributed money. So I sent my younger brother to the village and said, collect the names of the first 3 students in each class, and so we can give them scholarships, like free scholarships, yearly scholarship, pay their tuition. So that was what was happening. So I raised money here, and they will collect those names. And so I say, okay, if someone did that, because I was usually like, at least like the top 3 in my class. So somewhere there's a peer that is struggling, and this money can like save a peer. So contributed that money, and then I sent my little brother, he will go collect the names. And I know a place where I come from, like people struggle, teachers, like these teachers, they get paid like $40 a month to teach. So people struggle. So I said, this money is not touching anybody's hand. So when we actually selected people, I will make my younger brother to go pay the school fees and then take the receipts himself and then send the receipts to me.
Right.
So that's what we were doing. And that was pretty successful. The first time we gave scholarships to like 88 students across like the primary schools in the village. And at the second time we went up to like 150. And the last time we did, it was like up to 200 kids, 200 students. And the side things that we were doing was buying chalk and buying tables and constructing benches for schools and things like that. But the past 2 years, like I've been telling some of you guys, we had this crisis where like the younger people, they started revolting against the government because there were no jobs, and teachers were not getting paid, so teachers were on strike. So there's been like this instability going on in the country. And the last time we offered scholarships, we offered like 210 scholarships. And these kids, they went to school for the first term and they stopped them halfway. So that money went in vain, and the last academic year the whole year was wasted. So we said, until things come back to normal and we are sure that if we take people's money, it's actually going to go towards something.
Right.
Yeah.
So our role right now is to really just pray for that stability to happen.
To happen.
You can't help anybody right now because it's not stable. You
Yep.
don't know where the money's going to go, and kids aren't going to school. So
Yep. And I've had people saying, can they donate? And then I keep the money. I'm like, just wait, because I don't really want to be taking money and just saving and not doing anything. Because I want to, like, when I take money, do this, I want to show people, like, these are the benches that we constructed. These are the stuff we did. So until when things get back to normal, we'll resume. And this whole thing, my whole plan is, I don't want it to be like a one-way street, like just like helping people in Cameroon. Like my whole plan was, because I've gone, part of the thing I did when I was at SUNY Canton, I went through all the schools in Messina, Canton, Pasdam, went through like all the middle and high schools, like talking to them just about my experience going to school in Cameroon and how things look as different as they are here, the advantages and disadvantages, like sharing stuff like that. And my plan was, like, at some point when I'm able to, because I cannot say we'll volunteer to pay the school fees of a kid here in America. It's too expensive. But one thing we can do is sometimes, like, actually take a few kids from here in the US to go to Cameroon and actually see, like, experience, like have an experience of how kids attend school there, and like just looking at the classroom and things like that, even if it has to be like them saying that for 2 weeks and then come back here.
So Pierre mentioned this to our youth group that he's spending time with this winter, and they all sat up. It was the first time. They're usually kind of slouched down, and all of a sudden they all sat up. It was like, we could go with you. He's got a group of kids ready to go. So yeah.
Because like what I tell people is, like, you can go to France, like leaving your country and then visiting any other country is a great experience. Like from America to US, Tokyo, it's a great experience. But if you leave America and visit an African country, especially for a kid, it's a life-changing experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
I'm mostly interested in like kids like high school, like middle and high school, because like I've had experience with college students. They already feel like they know it all.
Yeah, I think it would be an awesome thing for our youth to go on a trip like that, and a nice cultural experience. But they can also, you also said they could help on the farm, and they could help with the kids at school. They could actually, see what it's like to have to work there and what a kid's life would be like.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's what I was saying. If that's gonna happen, I will have to be there, because I will want them to see and experience what I want them to see and experience. Because you go to Cameroon and then you go spend all your time in Yaoundé, it might as well be the same like spending your time in New York City.
Yeah.
So it's like when I took my host family back to Cameroon, I told them we are not being in the city, staying in the city. I took them way down to the village so they could.
That's right. Yeah. Has the quality of your mother and stepmother's life changed since you're able to help them financially?
Oh yeah, a lot. Because first of all, like they don't have to like wake up and go to the farm be on the road to go to the farm at 6 a.m. Like they don't have to work too hard. They don't have to worry about money. Okay. Like the only reason, like I send money to them that could last them as long as possible. The only reason I told them, you have to keep doing your farm work and everything. Stay in the village. Like even my brothers, they wanted to take my mom to stay with them in the city. I said no, because in the village, she does her farm work. It's like her exercise and things like that. Because she's in her own home. She's happy. She can do. So I send money. They go like farm work. They don't do hard work, like too much hard work anymore. I will send money. Like I know all the seasons. Like just like 2 weeks ago, I sent money so they can pay for people to cultivate their farms, and they will just go and do the planting of the farm. And just walking to the farm, like 2 miles to the farm and 2 miles to the farm and 2 miles back. That's that's her exercise, which is good for her.
Yeah. Keep going, Mom. Keep going.
Yeah.
She doesn't need to have a Fitbit. She already is getting her 10,000 steps in. Yeah.
Yeah. But like the quality of life changed completely.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And besides me, like all my other brothers, like most of them, they are well off now. So even if she doesn't come to me, she goes to any of them.
And all your nieces and nephews, are they now getting education? Is that now the thing to do in your family? Is education is it really important and valued? Yeah.
Yep, it is important and valued, and in school they have some kind of pride in school, which is something I wish I had. Like if I had a brother when I was in high school, I can just go to a friend and say, "Hey, can you buy me like some donut?" I have a brother in the US. He's going to send me money, and things will happen. Just the pride of them going to school and telling their friends they have their uncle in America. That's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
Yeah.
So Pierre, what does your future look like? Where do you feel God's taking you in your future?
Like right now, I'm like a really confused person right now. Like I'm in the middle of the road. Like I don't really fit in America. And even now when I go back to Cameroon, I don't fit completely in Cameroon. Because first of all,
countries.
Yeah. So I'm somewhere like in the middle of the road. Like me right now, I'm just saying like at some point I just want to be like at a position where I can like go to Cameroon whenever I want and be able to and I have like relations here in the US that I don't want to lose. I have my close contacts in Cameroon that I don't want to lose. So somehow I want to maintain like both sides, like be able to be here and be there whenever I want. So that would be the ideal solution for me. But one thing too is like me, like it's not only for myself, but like me being here in America is more beneficial, even for my family back home in Cameroon. I can make money here and make a bigger difference in Cameroon than I will make a difference in Cameroon if I went back to Cameroon.
Mm-hmm.
So especially like, for instance, you ask one of my lazy siblings if I should come back to Cameroon, they would say no, because if I come back to Cameroon, I'm not going to be giving them anything.
Oh dear.
So Pierre, as you know, our Lily and I are in the same book club, and so we wrote up a letter, and we sent 3 books to 3 different school districts with a letter saying that we as retired teachers really believe in your book and in your message, and that you were available to speak. So I delivered a book to North Syracuse and to Liverpool. And then Bill had it delivered through his son, Jeff, to the city school in Syracuse. So that was right before break. So maybe we'll hear something. I also emailed Oprah, haven't heard from her, but I did try. I was like, you never know, you know. But we just really believe in your message about, the first and foremost, that the education, that God gave us brains, and he gave us teachers, and he gave us the desire to learn, and that every child should have that opportunity to learn and grow, and to constantly have that and to have that thirst for learning developed by teachers, so you become a lifelong learner. Yeah. But also the message of faith, that God has been with you from the very beginning. I wonder if your mom knew when you were born that you were marked. Did she ever said anything like that to you, that you were different from her other children?
No, she doesn't say. She didn't say that. But I know I'm always the one that's always telling her that I'm her favorite, but she never said yes. But she's never said that. But one thing that happened is like, first of all, like when we went back to Cameroon, she's just like she's not like my mom. Like she believes like my mom is Ellen Rocco, like my American mom. She's like she always say like what Ellen did to me, she doesn't deserve to be my mom. So she thinks she's giving me away to Ellen.
Oh,
So
well,
so now I'm adopted.
yes, you have a lot of family. You have family all over the world now. So
Yeah.
we're just about, my questions are done. Does anybody else have questions for Pierre? Yeah, Linda.
It's not a question, but I was just wondering if it touched anybody else that Pierre put in his book. The bricks you are making now will one day be a building you will be living in. This just sums up your life and your book. And yeah, it really touched me that whether it's my Christian life or just living kind of. Either way, it's so true. That holds true. And I feel like my eyes bugged right out of my head when I read your words, why not first? I guess it just never dawned on me to say to myself, why not me be first?
Yeah.
Why not go for it, work for it? It's always just kind of, oh, well, it will come, if it comes, it comes.
Yeah, that's actually like my favorite quote, like the borders that you face today are the same borders that will be your castle tomorrow.
Here you are, an amazing young man. I am so pleased that I had a chance to meet you. And just my personal view is I see God working through you, in you, with all of the things that you have done. And you're such a role model for not only children in Cameroon, but the children that you meet here, the children that you see in the church. It's such an exception and such a wonderful gift from God for me to meet you.
Thank you.
And I only wish you nothing but the best. You're certainly on the road to really I'm sorry. I didn't turn.
Anybody else?
I apologize. I didn't remember to turn that off. You're certainly on the road to making a difference already. You have made a difference in your life. And for all of the other younger siblings and the other people in Cameroon. So God's speed and God's blessings to you. And I'm grateful that I have had the opportunity to listen in tonight, and certainly will keep you in prayer, because I do believe in the divine intervention. I see it happening in your life now, and it has been happening throughout your book. So thank you very much for telling me about it, Leanne, and I've enjoyed the
You're almost a member of our church now.
I know. I'll have to tell my priest at All Saints. I was just thinking as I listened to you that, I'd love for the parishioners to hear what you have experienced, because we can all learn. We learn something every day. I've learned something from reading your book, and who knows?
That's
Hopefully Oprah will see the letter, or someone else around here. But I think you have a huge future. It has already started. So good luck.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Garrett, can you pray for all of us and for Pierre, and for that the prayer that we can get his mission going again in Cameroon? Unless anybody else has anything else to say before we close it out. Okay.
Well, let me read a few verses out of Proverbs. says, my son, do not forget my teaching, but keep my commands in your heart, for they will prolong your life many years and bring you peace and prosperity. Let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck, write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will win favor and a good name in the sight of God and all humankind. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. This will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the first fruits of all your crops, and then your barns will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will brim over with new wine. God, we thank you for the miraculous ways that you have been in Pierre's life, the ways that you called him to education and called him to hard work and called him out of his country to this country in order that he might be a blessing for both his family and for all of us who have met him. And God, we pray for this mission that he has started in his this nonprofit. God, would you make a way that this mission might be a great blessing to the children in Cameroon, that they might be educated. God, that it might be a great blessing to those in this country who probably don't understand the blessings that they have. God, we trust that your paths will be straight ones for Pierre. And as he feels caught in the middle of the road, may he know that he is in the right place, that he is the bridge between us, and that in that bridge there is great grace and great hope. God, we give you all praise and all thanks. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Thank you, Garrett. Thank you, Pierre. This has been really special.
Thank you, guys.